Hey, y'all, it's episode 94 of the Late Night Vision Show. And, man, we got a special one for you. Backed by popular demand, we have a special guest for you, somebody that I'm excited to hear from because he always provides a lot of insight and helps me out a lot. So before we get into that, I'm going to bring in the owner of Outdoor Legacy, Mr. Jason Robertson, who is going to officially and formally introduce our guest today. But what's going on, Jason?
Not much, Hans. Having a good night, and I am excited. And you're exactly right. Backed by popular demand is the one and the only Mr. Glenn Guess of Hog Zombies. And if you're one of the few people in the world who don't know who that is, go over to YouTube. And you can be like one of over 17,000 people and subscribe to he and his wife's YouTube channel. And Glenn is known for calling in all kinds of animals, but specifically wild hogs. So, Glenn, how are you tonight?
Good. Tired.
Well, what have you been doing?
Well, I think you know the answer to that, but we actually entered a hog contest for the first time ever. Michelle wanted to do it. I gave up competition hunting many, many years ago. And so we entered a hog contest that runs for the month of February. And we had quite an extensive hike today. We called in 2 hogs and killed them. And we shot another hog that we stocked up on. And she's going to be a contender for the top 3 spots. I haven't weighed her yet because I was running late to do this interview. But she is definitely pushing the 300 mark pretty hard. So
wow.
Right now, anything over 300 is going to be in the top 3. So I think we're at 308, 303, and 299 are the top 3 hogs right now.
Yep. Well, we wish you luck, and we hope that we hope you win.
Well, let me tell you something.
Nice little payday.
He's more dedicated than me because if I had a hog that was possibly worth any kind of money like that, I would be I'd be putting this show off and weighing it just so that I knew for my peace of mind. But that's Glenn, you're dedicated. Hey, before we jump into this real quick, I need to ask you a question, Glenn. I've got emails from people asking a lot of different things. Hey, if you ever get Glenn on, ask him this, ask him that. But this afternoon, I got an email, and the guy said, if you get Glenn back on the show, would you please ask him, is there any chance of him ever making any kind of coon calls for the Convergent HP bullet? He said he's a big coon hunter, and he wants to buy one, but he wants to call in coons. What do you say to that, Glenn?
Well, I'm actually testing 2 different Coon Sounds at this time, and one of them has been phenomenal, especially in the late fall when the kittens are kind of getting away from their mothers and starting to do their own thing. It is really good at that time. Now, here's the problem.
Uh-oh.
We're waiting on app designers. So I do not know when those sounds will be available or if they'll be available through Convergent or if it'll be a side venture.
Sure.
At this time, I don't know. I don't have a projected date, but I am working on Coon Sounds, yes.
All right, Rick, you've got your answer, Rick, there. He is working on it, so there you go. I told you I'd ask, so there it is.
So, Glenn, we got you back on the show, and your interview and you coming on the show, I know you've been on a couple times. We did a 2-part interview with you before, but we get more questions and more response when you're on here from people. Obviously, hog calling, people that listen to this show are used to hearing about it. We talk about it quite a bit. I'm a big believer in it, and wanted to have you back on to really give us some more pointers, some more tips. And you recently put out a video on YouTube talking about the 6 reasons or mistakes that some hunters may use when they're calling hogs. So I want you to run through that real quick of that list. And I hope you didn't make this based on some of the videos you've seen of me using the Convergent. I've actually been pretty decent at it. Now, I have probably made every single one of the mistakes on this list that you're about to hear about, but I hope it wasn't made specifically for me.
Well, actually, that's what gave me the idea, was watching.
Oh, great. Great.
No, but seriously, I mean, I was thinking about calling you and asking you for some advice. you have isolated a hog vocalization that I've not witnessed. I've not heard in the wild. I've heard just about every sound that hogs make, but I have yet to hear one bark.
You've never. So I guess
they growl. They growl. You know.
Yeah. I'll let you get into the list, but and you can ask my buddies, and I don't know, maybe we've called in hogs, and we've called them in from behind us or from the sides of us, and they're really close. It's not really a bark, I guess. I guess that's a bad description, but it's almost something like that. And it's, you know what my buddies have told, it's almost like you're hearing somebody playing loud music, loud bass, a long way away, like a loud thumping sound. But it's the strangest thing. And my buddies, we will swear on a stack of anything that it's true because we've heard it many times. But anyway, I'll let you get to your list. All right, 6 mistakes that Hans has never made any one of these mistakes. So go into it.
Well, let me explain that sound you're hearing real quick. What you're hearing is when those sows are coming in, they're bouncing and they're grunting while they're bouncing. So when they hit the ground and that grunt's coming out as they're bouncing, it's like a ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
That's what you're hearing, and they're in motion, and that sound is coming out as they're in motion, and that a lot of times is how I know that there's a hog responding, and I can actually hear that sound for about a mile if there's not a lot of wind. So that's what you're hearing. It's just
at that. I've heard that sound so much that now I know what it is, but it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up when I hear it because they're close. You know, usually they're pretty close. But all right, so the 6 mistakes that Jason makes when he's out calling hogs.
Hey! I've been real quiet. I intend to be quiet over here because I'm just trying to keep my name off the board. So
exactly.
Okay, so what I've done is I constantly see guys. Now you got to remember that there's going to be some guys that still don't believe that hog calling is a viable method of hunting. And so they're going to get out there and bash it any way that they possibly can. Oh, I tried hog calling 5 or 6 times and it didn't work. You're going to hear all kinds of stuff like that from time to time. So putting those guys aside, the ones that are just out there to stir up controversy, I started compiling a list of serious questions and things that guys are talking to me about, and I've had quite a few call me and talk to me on the phone. And some people you can talk to until you're blue in the face, and you're never going to change their train of thought. And one guy in particular comes to mind. He just kept on, and the obvious thing that he was doing wrong was he was driving a vehicle that sounds like an army tank going into the hunting spot. And I just could not convince him that he was going to have to hike into this area to hunt. And so, But anyway, I compiled a list of these things, and the most common things that I see that people are doing wrong through emails and through talking to them and trying to figure out, because I try personally through private messaging or texts or emails to try to help people figure out why they're not having success. And so I came up with 6 major ones, and the number one thing is limited use. These guys are going out and trying to call hogs 4, 5, or 6 times, and they just quit. They don't go back to it. And they think that that's enough of an experiment to determine why they're not coming. And, the best way I can describe it is you didn't go out bass fishing and cast a lure 5 or 6 times and say, well, I didn't catch anything. Fish don't bite lures. It just doesn't work that way. They are just like fish in that they are on and they are off. And I don't know what turns them on, and I don't know what turns them off. The same with fish and predators. Anything you call, anything that you try to lure in with visual lures or audio type lures, there are going to be on and off times that they're not going to respond. And trying it 5 or 6 times is not a good way of doing it. And to be honest, I mean, we've hunted the last 3 days, and we got very few hogs to respond in the last 3 days. Now, we're hunting extremely pressured areas, but we did end up calling in 2 boars last night. Michelle elected not to shoot one of them because we knew there were bigger hogs there, and so she let him go, which is a very rare thing for us to do. But the second one wasn't quite so lucky. So, but that would be the number one thing. The number two thing is, do you want to touch on that?
I just was going to say, I was just going to say one thing is that there's 2 things going on there. The limited amount of time they've done it, and I think bass fishing is a perfect example of that. But even if you go out there on the lake and you throw that lure every single day, for 8 hours and you don't catch a fish, it doesn't mean that there's no fish in the lake and that they don't hit lures. You may not know what you're doing. You may be throwing it in the wrong spot, or you may not be reeling it in right. So what I'm saying is, the point I'm making there is, even if you do it enough and it's not working, you could be doing it wrong, and nobody wants to think they're the problem. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that there's 2 things that work there.
Yeah, well, if you're out there making enough hog sounds, sooner, I don't care how wrong you're doing it, sooner or later you're gonna find a dumb one. So
a dumb one's gonna come in.
But
even Hans can call.
Yeah,
one
even. I didn't say that, you did.
I know. This
All right,
is going to be
go
a
on down
dump
your
on
list.
Hans.
All right.
Okay,
Number 2, beginning hunters. It was incredible how much better I got at calling hogs as my skill level increased at consistently finding and killing hogs without calling them. So if you're a beginning hunter and you've been sitting and watching deer feeders or sitting and watching bait, and that's the only method that you've used to hunt hogs, or even just spotting with thermal, that's a fairly new trend. And a lot of thermal hog hunters are not going to have the experience they need to find hogs by other methods, because you're just scanning fields that they're going to be in, like wheat fields or crops or under pecan trees. There's so much more that goes with it than just scanning looking for a hog. So, and which that brings me to number 3, which is hunting over feeders and over bait. There's just so much more information to be learned by hunting them in other methods than just sitting and watching a feeder or a bait site. And those hogs that are coming to those feeders and bait sites have probably been shot at many times. And the big mature hogs are going to learn to circle downwind of those feeders for many different reasons. Number 1, predators. Number 2, hunters. Number 3, the great big boar that kicked their behind last week. So they learn to circle downwind of those bait sites. And a lot of guys that try calling near those bait sites have negative results. And the reason being is the hogs are circling downwind of them and they're never seeing them. So, but that would be the 3rd reason. And I'm just touching on these quickly because we're out of time. Yeah. We're going to run out of time tonight. But a lot of, when I designed these sounds originally, it was to pull hogs out of cover and into the open so that I could kill them. I didn't think a whole lot about thermal guys going out and spotting hogs in open fields and then attempting to call those hogs to them. So I designed aggressive sounds to pull those hogs out of their safety, out of their comfort zones, into the open. And like I say, the number 4 reason would be calling the hogs in open areas, because when they're in the open, especially at night, get out in big open fields or big open areas, they're a little bit outside their comfort zone. There's a heightened sense of awareness and being alert. And if you start with an aggressive sound or start too loud, you're going to send those hogs to cover. They may come back. A lot of times hogs will rally and go to cover. And there's a whole other subject we could go into here, but your dominant sows are the ones that are most likely to come on in. Your subordinate sows, or guardian sows as I call them, they'll take the pigs to cover, and once those pigs are to cover, a lot of times they'll come on in and follow that lead sow or that more aggressive sow onto you. So when they do run to cover, you don't want to quit calling. You want to continue to call in hopes of pulling them back. Now, sometimes people are spooking them, so you need to use less aggressive sounds, lower volumes. If they don't react the way in a positive way, you want to stop calling altogether, give them time to settle down, and either walk to them or try a different sound. Number 5, the use of ATVs and UTVs. And I was talking to y'all about the hunt we had this evening. We hiked 6 miles. And the reason why we did is because the area that we're hunting has some really big hogs, but they are highly, highly pressured hogs. On each side of us, there's ranches that are leased out to day hunters and to they have deer feeders and bait sites and stations all over. And it's mainly for deer season, but they hunt hogs as well. So these are highly pressured hogs. And those guys ride their ATVs and UTVs and their vehicles all over the place. And so I try to slip in a little more quietly before I start calling. And sometimes I can drive. Yep. Like today, we actually had to drive through the area to get the wind in our favor. And we hunted back towards the main road and then hunted back towards the truck at last light. But the overuse of loud vehicles, ATVs, UTVs, is a lot of times those hogs catch on pretty quick, and they associate those sounds with hunters or with danger. And occasionally you find a stupid one. I mean, just this past summer, Michelle shot a big sow in a field that we called in. We continued to hunt the ranch, and we went back on our UTV after dark. And the landowner doesn't want the hogs left in his fields. And so we go in and we take pictures of this sow. We load her up in the UTV, and we're driving along, and the hog runs right in front of us. And we were talking in normal voices and making all kinds of racket because we were through hunting. And this hog runs right in front of the UTV, and mine is loud. And Michelle shot him out of the UTV less than 20 yards away from it, and we'd made all kinds of racket. So I mean, if you can find good stupid hogs, it makes for a lot better hunting.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's the kind I need.
That's the kind everybody needs. And the sixth reason that that people are having trouble calling hogs is because a lot of people hunt leases where they're sharing these properties with other hunters, and a lot of guys are hunting in other states, not so much Texas, but other states. They have hunting clubs, so you got a lot of different guys going in there and doing different things. They're only hunting on the weekends. They're coming in there in their vehicles and pulling trailers with their UTVs, ATVs, making all kinds of racket. They got their radios playing. They fire up the fire pit so they can cook food or whatever. They sight in their rifles, and animals catch on to that pretty quick. They will still come to bait sites when that's going on a lot of times, but the mentality that hogs or predator, anything that you're calling, when you start calling to an animal, you're changing their mentality somewhat, and they're going to respond differently, especially if there's a lot of pressure. And you guys and a lot of other people know that I'd had rather watch paint dry than sit and watch a deer feeder. But on one particular piece of property I've got some little 7 or 8 foot tripods that are open, and then we set on, and we can literally see for 3 or 4 miles and see some good country. And I actually planted a food plot and put a deer feeder there this year. And I kind of enjoy sitting there watching that one. And what I discovered, we share this piece of property with a lot of other weekenders, and they come in to mostly just to have fun. And they're supposedly here to hunt, but their idea of hunting is to get on those ATVs or UTVs and use this 1,000 acres like a recreational park. And after they do that, I do not see the mature hogs or the mature bucks on my cameras at that food plot for 3 days. One particular buck, I would see him come in, and he would show up 2 or 3 days in a row, and then I wouldn't see him for 6 or 7 days. And so especially if there was any pressure from people riding their ATVs or UTVs around. So my point with this is, if you're going to hunt, if you have to hunt a place with other hunters, leases, or hunting clubs, don't pattern the animals, pattern the hunters. When they're not there, that's when you need to go and call. And I did a video on this that I go a little more in depth. So anybody that's listening, if you want to see that video, go to Hog Zombies on YouTube. And I think I called it 6 Reasons Hog Calling Fails or something like that.
Yeah, something, 6 mistakes or
something. I think it was 6 Reasons Hog Calling Fails. But you can go in there and watch that, and I go a little more in depth about why you're having issues with those areas and how to eliminate it or how to improve your success with it.
So I've just have a ton of questions, but I'm going to yield to Jason. I'll let Jason go first. Jason, you have something to ask before I get into my laundry list of stuff?
I have like a million things to ask. So
you ask one question and I'll go next. How about that?
Okay. Well, I know one thing that we get asked a lot, and I've got a feeling this is going to be on Hans's list, and we might have talked about this before, but how far away from you do you generally put the caller? So when you're calling hogs, and we're talking hogs here tonight, when you're calling them, how far away is that caller from you?
It is very rarely as far as 30 yards. Very rarely. I like to call with a crosswind. I prefer a crosswind over a wind in my face. And the reason that I like that is because we're videoing. And so I set the call upwind of me, usually 15 or 20 yards at the most, in hopes that when those hogs circle downwind of that call, and a lot of times they will, that puts them directly in front of my camera and directly in front of my shooter. So if the wind's blowing from right to left, I put the call off to my right. If I'm hunting in thick cover, I may not put that call 10 feet away from me because I want them to come to, I want them where I can see them. And if you put it too far away, they can circle downwind of the call, and they're going to smell you on that call no matter what you do to eliminate that odor. So if they get downwind of that call before you see them, guess what? You're never going to see them. You may hear them, but you won't see them. Now, if I do have to set up with the wind in my face, and this happened recently with some guys that had never seen hogs called in, I made the mistake of setting the call too close because of the area we were in, and I didn't want them sticking to the cover and getting downwind of the call. Well, in the process, they came in on top of us, and I was trying to get these guys to back up in the dark and not get shot at the same time. So if the wind is in my face, I will generally set it a little farther out, maybe 30 yards, or if it's good open country, a little farther. But the farther you put that call out, the more likely you are to get hogs downwind of you or the call before you get the opportunity to kill them.
Okay, so that's perfect. Now I'm going to ask this in just a quick answer. And I know there's no such thing as a quick answer, but because we've got a lot of guys who are coyote hunters on here, and I know you've been a predator and a coyote hunter for a long time, roughly how far do you put that call when you're predator or coyote hunting as compared to hog hunting?
Really and truly about the same, maybe a little farther out. In good open country, I will put it a little further out, but my whole objective in calling animals is to get them in my lap. Right. And it makes really good video.
Absolutely. It does. And it's a lot more fun.
But I did it before I started videoing my hunts as well. I wanted to put them in our laps, and at the same token with the predators, if I've got somebody on shotgun, I want them to be where I think that animal's going to come if he circles downwind of that call. And then I have someone on the rifle that can pick them off if they don't circle, if they come from a different direction or come straight to the call. But the majority of hogs will circle downwind of that call.
Yeah. So I've do have a difficulty with some of these hogs running around. Now I've been fortunate enough. I've taken a lot of your advice to heart in the past. I've been fortunate enough to call in a bunch of hogs, and the hogs that I'm calling in are on the aggressive calls, like the sow hysteria, the boar magnet have worked fantastic for me. I've called in, lone boars, called in groups of hogs, but I've also scared off a bunch of hogs where you'll see a group of hogs 300 or 400 yards away, and either they're on another property and you're trying to pull them off and pull them closer to you so you can shoot. But it seems like when you have a group of shoats that don't seem to have a dominant either female or male in the group, they get scared off all the time. And that's one thing that I've struggled with, and it's when you have this group where it just seems like it's just a bunch of shoats. Has that been your experience? And if so, what can I do? What can we do to get better at giving us a chance on those?
Using aggressive sounds, that's going to happen, and the majority of the boar-specific sounds are a little more aggressive, and I have seen young piglets move away from my courting boar sounds, and those are really pretty like Hey Baby is a courting boar, and then the courting boar sounds. They're not really super aggressive sounds, especially Hey Baby, but a lot of times those younger pigs are getting their behinds handed to them on a regular basis by bigger hogs, and they're going to move away from that. So if you want to call in those younger pigs, I would try the rally. And really and truly, if I'm just targeting hogs indiscriminately, I just want to kill a hog, I will start with the rally. It's not a super aggressive sound, so I start it low and I work my way up. Give them 3 to 4 minutes. If you can see them, watch them and see how they react. But like the majority of the hogs that I call to are not hogs that I can see, because if I can see them, I can kill them.
Yeah, exactly. And what we're trying to do also most of the time is do the same thing you are. We'll go to a property. The first thing we do is scan. If we don't see anything, we'll set up the collar, and try to pull them out of the woods into an open field. And I've had gone up where we've seen a boar out there and we've played a call and he's run into the woods, and we'll switch the call and we've brought him to us. I think the question about the distance of the collar is one that's a lot of people ask about, and it's I've kind of in that situation where I've kept the collar real close to me, or I've put it 20 or 30 yards away. I think one thing that I got from your video that I've really taken away and I'm going to take to heart is using non-aggressive sounds, because that's something that since I had so much success with aggressive sounds, I've kind of gotten in that rut where I continue to use it. But, in that video, you list the Mama Please, the Rally. I've actually saved on the Convergent or the Hog Pro app, I've actually saved the sounds that you suggested in the video. But starting with those less aggressive calls, because of the fact of if you're not calling an area where there is a dominant or an alpha, giving yourself a chance. And that's one thing, and I would suggest to people out there too, because a lot of my buddies that I've been hunting with are, they kind of do the same thing. We've had success with the aggressive ones. But I tell you what, there's nothing like calling in a big angry boar that's coming in to kick some butt. I mean, that's pretty fun,
It is.
Well, when you shoot them and you go over there and they're foaming at the mouth because they're trying to get to that collar is incredible,
Well, sometimes you don't know how anything's going to react to calling, but getting stuck in a rut is easy to do. I do it as well. I have my favorite sounds that I like to use, and I've had guys say, "Hey man, I use this sound and I call hogs with it every time." Well, I may not have called in very many hogs with that sound because I'm not using it. I'm using something. I'm using something else. And we tend to go back to what we know works. And for people to say, well, we've called in more hogs with sow hysteria than any other sound. Okay, that is probably true, but the reason why is because that's the sound you're using the most.
Yeah, that's the sound. That's the sound that I've been starting off with.
They all work.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't
yeah.
have put them out there for everybody, because I fully tested all but one sound. I have fully tested to the max before I let anyone have them or use them. And the only one that I have not used a whole lot is chow time, and I designed chow time for use around bait sites and feeders. And since I don't hunt that way, I don't utilize that sound a whole lot. So I saw that it worked, and I put it out there for people to use. And I'm seriously thinking about creating a similar sound for calling to hogs in feeding areas or areas where they're a little bit more uncomfortable.
So can you, for the listeners, can you give us a progression of sounds that you like to start with and work your way up to? Because I know in the video you talk about starting at different volumes and moving volumes up. Are there any sounds that are kind of right now your favorites to go to?
Well, you're kind of putting me on the spot here, because I'm already using different sounds, and I have forgotten half of those sounds.
Well, Glenn, I've been using this caller for a year now. It's been exactly a year, and I use it every time I go out. Your name on the video that you put out, you're talking about calls, and I'm like, I don't even remember seeing that. I had to go back in there because I have my 4 favorite. And I'm having to go back through the app and listen to these sounds, and I've never even used them, And so
I want to break in here real quick, because there's one thing we didn't do at the beginning of this show, and there's probably some people that have been listening that may have no clue what we're talking about. And this is a mistake. I should have done this early on, folks. For those that don't know, we're talking about these sounds and this call and this caller like everybody knows, and I know that a lot of our listeners do. But we're talking about the Convergent HP bullet collar and the Convergent sidewinder collar, and those calls, they're a Bluetooth call. They have an app that you can download, multiple apps for predator hunting, hog hunting, and deer hunting. But there is an app that you download. You can find it in the App Store, whether you've got an Android or a Apple device. And it's called Hog Pro.
This is important to get right, because it is called actually the Wild Hog Pro app. And there are so many clones out there now made in Afghanistan and foreign countries that are very similar in name, and people are getting the wrong ones.
Okay. So look for that. Yeah, look for that app, and that app goes with the Convergent callers. And, these are Glenn sounds that he made. We've talked about that in some previous episodes. We do sell all these Convergent callers at Outdoor Legacy. I just want to make sure that people know what we're talking about, because we're talking about specific calls and this caller like everybody knows. So anyway, if you've made it this far and you're wondering, that's what we're talking about.
And they designed the Wild Hog Pro app before I actually joined with them. So to get my sounds that Hans and I are talking about it's actually an in-app purchase. Correct. And they're the Glenn Guest Series.
It's the best money you'll
sound.
ever spend if you're using the Convergent callers, because your sounds are the best. And I tell people they're the most realistic thing, the sounds that I've ever heard, and the bullet, the sound that the bullet produces is amazing as far as being realistic. But yeah, Jason, thanks for that rundown, because we are sitting here we're picking up like this.
Yeah, I've been sitting here for like 15 minutes going.
We're picking up like this is part 3 of the interviews that we had from several months ago,
a year ago.
But
to go back to what you were asking is what sounds and sequences and stuff that I use. If I'm wanting to target big boars, I will start with Hey Baby, and Hey Baby is a very low volume sound. Now, before I get into volumes and stuff, it is talking about this. Michelle has the sound Courting Boars as her ringtone on her phone. It is incredible how many hogs that she has called in with nothing more than her phone. So if you're close, I mean, and that can be 100 yards away, it's incredible how well they hear. So it's important not to play too loud no matter what sound you're using. But Hey Baby is a very low volume sound, so if there's no wind, it will carry very well. But if it's windy, it doesn't carry as far as, we don't know. We're not sure how well they can hear it, because I've had them come in when it was blowing 40 miles an hour and Hey Baby was at third volume. So they can hear better than we give them credit for. And I'm guilty of that too. If I'm out there calling and nothing's coming in, I just keep cranking that volume up as loud as it'll go, because I think, well, they're not coming. Obviously, they can't hear me. But that is a mistake. And like I say, I'm guilty of it too. And folks, I'm learning how to do this stuff right along with y'all. I mean, I'm a little ahead of everybody else, but I'm still learning new stuff on a regular basis. But so, like I say, I start with, if I'm gonna target boars, with the sounds that are available to the public at this time. I use Hey Baby and I let it play for 3 to 5 minutes. I go to full volume on that sound pretty quick. About halfway through, probably go on to full volume on it. Then I volume back down. I switch to courting boars, and I start voluming up a little bit at a time until I'm positive that everything within a couple hundred yards should be able to hear me, or even a quarter of a mile, and just keep working your volume up to depending on the wind. Obviously, if there's no wind, you're not going to ever want to get that above quarter volume. If it's blowing 40 miles an hour, by all means crank it on up, because there may be some hog out there that can't hear it. But and I've not really seen it spook them. I've had it playing full volume and them be 10 feet away from the call, and they don't seem to care.
Don't tell Hans that, because he starts his at full volume and is
well, he needs to quit that.
He's trying to get it to go higher. He's looking for an amplifier for that thing.
We're almost 40 minutes in this show, and the pile-on session, it took a lot longer to pile on than I thought, but I knew it would happen.
So anyway, I let courting boars play for about 3 to 5 minutes as well. And then I switch to something else, something that's going to give the hogs, give them the appearance that something that they're hearing an entire group of hogs. Boar Magnet and Total Chaos both do that. I like Total Chaos a little bit better than Boar Magnet, but I've had some really phenomenal success with both. But now, I don't stay in one spot. Usually about the 10-minute mark, I'm ready to move to another spot. And Michelle is getting pretty bad about that too, but you really need to stay there at least 12 to 15 minutes before moving on. And if you're patient, stay longer than that. But back to the fishing scenario, the more casts you make, the more likely you are to have a high success rate. So the more stands I can make, the more spots I can call at 12 to 15 minutes per stand or per spot gives me greater odds. And so I'm playing an odds game rather than sit there all day and kill one hog or two or whatever.
All right, hold on. I got to ask a question about that, because I know this is going to come up, and it's a logical question of, all right, you just told us that the hogs can see, I'm sorry, not see, but hear very long ways. I'm not calling them in from very, very long ways off. And I do know you have access to a lot of land and some big tracts of land. But if you're moving every 10, 15, even 20 minutes, and those hogs can hear that far, how far, and I know you can go a long ways, but how far would you tell a guy, you got to go this far before it's worth setting up? He can't go 250 yards and start again. He's calling the same hogs, right?
Yes, that's basically what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. So you got to go a pretty good ways.
Now, keep in mind, I'm doing the majority of my calling in the daytime. So
right,
I pick a destination with the wind in my favor, hopefully the entire time, and I work like, say, a draw or a patch of timber, something that I think is going to hold hogs for several miles. because, like I say, we walk a lot. We usually walk about 6 miles per day when we hunt, or per hunt. So, say I'm following a creek bottom or a strip of timber running through big pastures. I will set up and call, and after 12 or 15 minutes, I'm going to move, depending on terrain, how far I move. If it's open terrain I can see, I'm going to move further. But if it's tight cover, I may only move 200 or 300 yards and set back up. And sometimes that hog may be already coming to me when I get up and move. And by starting calling closer to him, he just thinks that other group of hogs have moved closer in, and he'll come on in. So, yes, I mean, quite often we do that. Today we set up and called in pretty thick cover, and we moved. The first time we moved less than 150 yards. The second time we moved about 200 yards, and we got into some hogs that were bedded and never got up to us calling. As soon as we started calling, they started reacting to us, and Michelle decided that she wasn't in the right spot. She got up, moved, and spooked them all away.
Yeah.
You're tattling on her, and she's not here to defend herself.
where we spooked those hogs from was very tight cover, very thick. We didn't have a 40-yard shot at the most. We moved less than 20 yards from where we spooked them, set up, started calling, and had a boar come in behind us. So we had already moved through there, spooked hogs, and anybody that's heard hogs get up out of a bedding area and move, it sounds like I heard an elephant's leaving.
Does.
And this boar came. Now, granted, he wasn't a big mature boar, but he was probably close to 200 pounds. He came in behind us, and that was after us spooking hogs out of that area. So. And that's another thing. If you do bump hogs up or spook hogs, don't give that spot up. Go ahead and set up and call, because sometimes if they just heard you or saw you and didn't smell you, a lot of times you can call them back. If they smell you, chances of calling them back are pretty slim. I've done it, but it's on the far end of the spectrum there.
I got one last question for you, and then we'll wrap it up because we're getting down to the end. But
we didn't cover the sow sounds when you were asking about sequences.
Okay. Can you get into those real quick?
So I'll do it real quick. Start with if I'm just calling hogs, I don't care what comes in. I just want to kill a hog. I try to start with a non-aggressive sound, and I usually start with the rally at a very low volume and work my way up, because the rally is not a real loud sound either. It doesn't carry quite as far as some of the other sounds, and I let it play 3 to 5 minutes, volume back down, and switch to sow hysteria, and I let it play for 3 to 5 minutes and slowly work my way up. That is another sound that you probably shouldn't ever play at full volume unless you're wanting to stay there a long time and draw hogs from. I've had hogs come from over a mile to that sound. So I let it play for 3 to 5 minutes, and then I switch to Vampigra, and it's a piglet in distress. Actually, it's a shoat in distress is what it is, but it's a piglet in distress. And I let it play for 3 to 5 minutes, and you can generally hear the sows respond. But we had a boar respond to it this evening, and Michelle got him killed, and that was after we had shot a hog out of that group, and they ran into cover, and we started calling immediately and pulled him back to us. So, and that's something else. After a kill, immediately after a kill, switch sounds. Go to Lil Squealer, some type of piglet in distress, Vampigra, and and let it play. And after it's played for a few minutes, go back to the rally or back to sow hysteria, because a lot of times you can pull those hogs back in after shooting at. We've done it as many as 3 or 4 times in a row after shooting a hog after hog, just kept calling them back.
Yeah, and I've actually had some success doing that with calling in a hog, shooting them, letting it play in a few more minutes. They come back in. I've actually seen too where we've shot a hog and that hog started squealing because it was shot, and and another hog came in to that hog because it was squealing. So it's kind of crazy.
Well, I compare it to, say you got a litter of puppies in the backyard or a group of dogs in the backyard. If you accidentally step on one of them's tail or shut his tail in the car door or whatever, and he starts squealing, those other dogs are going to either attack him or come to his aid. And hogs do the same thing. And the first time that I witnessed it, Michelle shot a hog and she hit him a little bit far back, and he was spinning around and squealing, and another boar came flying in there and just thrashed him. And so he wasn't coming to help; he was coming to kill.
So,
and he died too. So
let me ask you this, Glenn, before we wrap up. A lot of people ask. I've been wondering about it as well. Does weather, especially very cold temperatures, if you're trying to call in aggressive boars and aggressive hogs, the alphas of the group, do very cold temperatures make them less aggressive and less harder to call in?
Yes and no. If it's just cold, not coupled with a bunch of wind, a lot of times no, it doesn't seem to affect them. But I know you've had this happen before you started calling hogs. You hit the same field on a regular basis, and you've got this one field, you're always going to see hogs there. And we have a sudden drastic change in weather, and the wind's blowing 400 miles an hour. And it does that in Texas,
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got extremely windy conditions coupled with a strong northern or strong cold front. It just flat shuts them down. You will not see a hog in that field all night long, and that'll be a field that you've seen hogs in forever and always. That's your go-to spot. There's one there every time, never a miss. And that wind will come in like that, and it shuts them down. It kind of does the same thing with calling. If we have extreme fronts blow through like that, a lot of times it'll shut them down. And I've seen similar cases where we had a really cold, wet southeast wind just prior to a front coming through. And a lot of times you think the night before a front blows through, a lot of times there's a lot of activity. But we've had, I've documented this quite a bit, where you have really good weather and then all of a sudden you get this real strong southeast cold, wet wind blowing. And there's a front coming the next day, and you're out there wanting to get it done before that front blows through. A lot of times that seems to shut them down as well. So one extreme to the other, it just there's no rhyme or reason to it sometimes.
yeah, definitely drastic changes in temperature.
I know you're a big moon phase guy, and
I'm a huge yeah, definitely. Well, we could do a whole other show on that, but Jason, this is your last chance. I know you may have a question, but before we got to wrap this up.
No, I have 50 questions.
Well,
and,
we're definitely
Glenn's got a hogged away, and there's no time for more questions. As much as I want to, we're gonna have to do it on another.
We're definitely gonna have you back, Glenn. I'd love to get your opinions and thoughts on predator calling as well. So we may have to have you come back for that, because that's one thing that we really haven't touched on with you, Glenn, and your calling. So, but Glenn, where can people find you? Give them some information on where they can check out more of your videos.
YouTube under Hog Zombies. I've got over 300 videos. I don't know exactly. Not all of them are calling hogs. We have other methods of hunting on there and other species as well, predators and deer. And a lot of people don't know this, but my first true love is big whitetails. So, and I like to call them in too. So. As everybody knows, I killed a pretty nice one this year. So
yes, you did. We saw pictures. It was nice.
You did. How big was that buck?
172 6/8.
Man, that's big.
Typical 10
free range buck.
Now I killed another one too that grossed around 140. in a different county. But anyway, Hog Zombies on YouTube. Hog Zombies on Instagram, and I have Facebook under Hog Zombies also. So
awesome. So y'all go check it out. YouTube, Hog Zombies. He is the man when it comes to this kind of stuff. Everybody famous. Everybody talks about it all. A lot of the listeners call in. They love when you're on. So thank you for being on the show again. This has been episode 94 of the Late Night Vision Show. If you want to find our episodes, you can go to www. I don't need to say that anymore. I don't know why I just did. You can go to the Late Night Vision Show. You can go to latenightvision.show.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook, The Late Night Vision Show. You can find me on YouTube at Hans ETX, but go check out Hog Zombies first, and then go over to the Hans ETX channel. You can find some videos there as well. And on Instagram, you can find me at Hans ETX. So thank you all for joining us. Well, Jason, I know they can find some scopes and optics somewhere, right?
Yeah, anybody looking for Convergent, call.
Yeah, exactly. The sponsor of the show, Outdoor Legacy.
Optics, that's right. You can find us at outdoorlegacygear.com. We're on all the social medias as well, but outdoorlegacygear.com, or you can give us a call, 877-350-1818. And folks, this is Glenn actually set a record for the Late Night Vision Show tonight. He is the only person, the only guest that has made 3 appearances on the Late Night Vision Show. So we haven't had anybody else willing to come back more than once. But anyhow, Glenn, we thank you for coming back. We will have you again. Make it 4 because I have a whole list of questions. But you and Hans took over the show, and I was just over here returning some emails.
It was a bad night to try to do a show. It
didn't.
Well, I told you if we killed a really big hog, we'd be running late, and so we killed a big hog, of course, and
well, you're going to have to come back and tell everybody how big the hog is. So that's going to be another show for that.
I'll probably put it on Facebook or Instagram what she weighed. So I'm gonna.
We'll let everybody.
As soon as we hang up here, I'm gonna go try to get her weighed. So
good deal. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Episode 94. We appreciate Glenn coming out as always. And so check us back next week. We'll be here as always with another great episode for you. So stay safe in the fields and keep making those bacon pancakes.